Welcome back, little helpers. Today, I am passing the spotlight torch to Kibby, who is a new mother and has a lot to tell us about what labor and delivery was like, what the first few months of motherhood is like, and how friends and family can help and provide social support, and what kind of support is really important and helpful. So, Kibby, just to start out, how are you doing?
I'm good. I mean, I don't really know how to answer that when people ask me, because it's like I've had periods where it was like the hardest of my entire life, the hardest times or feelings or experiences of my entire life, but also the most amazing. So, and then also fine. Also, I don't feel like I'm that different. So I don't really know how to answer that, but I'll just say good.
So observing you, late pregnancy was super tough. And it seemed like the first month or two were really, really tough. But you seem kind of like you're normalizing now. You seem pretty cheerful and getting back to life. Does that feel accurate?
Yeah, I feel like I went into like a whirlwind tunnel of craziness. And now I'm starting to reemerge and come back to myself and thinking about coming back to work and seeing my friends like you again. And I'm glad that we're doing this episode, because everyone talks about how like pregnancy and the first few weeks of parenthood are so crazy, but no one remembers why, because it becomes like a blur. And so I'm kind of happy to, have a record of like what happened and why it was so crazy, why it was such a fundamental shift. But also for people who are like considering becoming a parent or like about to or planning to or not sure. It's kind of, I bet it's kind of interesting to hear like what happens in that tunnel.
Yeah. So without scaring, well, we are going to scare people a little bit, I think, but I think maybe we'll just add the optimistic note of you seem to be doing a lot better now. But tell us about late pregnancy.
Yeah, it was literally the hardest time in my life. I think I was I'm a person who my happiness is tied to how my body feels. And it was the most uncomfortable I've ever felt. And I'll have to say that I probably had a harder time than most people. I think my hips actually dislocated or something strange like that. But yeah, so I basically couldn't move around. And I had a big ass baby. Like he came out 9 pounds, 4.5 ounces. And I was carrying that guy around. And it was like the whole pregnancy and the first few weeks, I'm like a long-term planner. You know me. I like to plan ahead. I like my goals and my work. But it really was like such a primal experience that I just kind of felt like I was taking every day by day and just trying to survive and figure out what my body needs at every second. So it was a real, like I felt like an animal. I felt just like a zoo animal, just like waiting for the event. So the last few weeks you're just waiting and so physically uncomfortable, and it took like all of my might, and even though you might be done, even though you want to quit, you just can't.
Yeah.
And that's motherhood, guys.
You were overdue, right?
I was overdue by a couple days, but I was dying. I was texting you just being like, I can't do this anymore. Like I can't get this out of me.
Yeah. Was there anything that anybody could do for you during that time?
Yeah, I mean, the theme of this will be just like how important social support is. Like, like loved ones right now, like we talk about how loved ones are crucial for mental health all the time, but this was really like, I needed people in ways I really hadn't before.
Yeah.
Even times when I've like struggled with mental health, like I feel like pregnancy and new motherhood, you really need people. You really need someone to back you up in really practical ways. Like I just really needed someone to I needed Alex, my husband, to tie my shoelace every time I put on my shoes, and I felt so vulnerable. Usually I'm like a strong, independent lady, but I just couldn't tie my shoelace, like to go on a walk. And so you needed that, but you also need to feel safe. So you need just like practical help. And it just kind of gave me a picture of what it'd be like to be terminally ill or to be very old or like feeble, right? And just needing people around you to do things and not and like doing it willingly and not make you feel ashamed or scared,
Yeah. were you able to eat? I just...
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That's all I could do, and that's all I did. Yeah. Yeah. Pregnancy felt like if you had, Thanksgiving's coming up, you have your Thanksgiving dinner, and you're like, oh, my gosh, I'm so bloated and popping out of my thing. Imagine that, but then eat, 8 more of those, and then don't digest. That's what it is.
Man, you just that sounds like awesome and awful at the same time.
Yeah, it was rough.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's like everyone talks about how being a new parent is a huge shift. It's a huge identity change. You're losing a lot, but you're sitting there waiting for this huge change, and you don't know what it's going to be like for you. I just didn't know what I was getting myself into. It's major, but I didn't know how. And then so it's just kind of sitting and waiting for this train to come, and you don't know what's on that train. You don't know where that train's taking you.
It feels like I'm just imagining myself waiting for that and thinking, but also being so physically uncomfortable that my thoughts aren't even productive or useful. And it's just, yeah.
Yeah, I had no thoughts. I'm just so used to being a cerebral person, and that was just I was just an animal. Making noises and feeding, watering myself, just waiting for the moment.
Well, what was that like you had a new husband? You guys have been together for a year and a half.
Yeah.
And, you went from being all sexy to now you're telling me you're a zoo animal. Hippo.
Yeah. And then the doctors were like, one of the things that early induces labor is sex. And I was like, you should see me try to tie a shoelace. And then you tell me. Yeah, I have to say that, I think definitely all of these things change a relationship. And I do have to say that, for people who've listened before who know me, I got out of a relationship that was not good. I got a divorce from someone that I was trying to have a baby with. And then I'm with Alex, who I have a lot of trust for, and we have a really good foundation. I think that was the most crucial thing ever. I feel like people try to have a baby when some people want to have a baby when it's there's something wrong with the relationship or missing, and then they go, okay, but I really want to start a family, or this baby will fix something, or fill a hole, or bring us close together, or they kind of look for the kid as the Band-Aid.
Yeah. But
I personally don't know anyone whose kid made a relationship better. Your focus all goes from the two-ness of each other, the actual relationship, forming it and focusing on each other, to focusing on focusing on the pregnancy or this baby. So your attention goes somewhere else, and you're doing something stressful together and unknown, and you have to communicate a lot and be a good team. And so any kind of cracks in that show up really quickly. And of course, I'm hormonal, I'm more emotional, I'm losing a lot of the strength and independence that I thought that I really valued. So I'm losing a coping strategy and identity that was super important to me. And at the same time, being a partner to someone. So, we went from we were together for a year. Suddenly we were pregnant within a couple months of us dating, and immediately we've been together longer as being pregnant than not.
Yeah.
So that's crazy.
Was it weird feeling? Were you feeling unattractive or anything like that with a new partner?
Yeah, that's the thing that I feel really lucky about. And for anyone listening, I hope this of you, and you could ask your loved one or partner for this. Alex was really good and supportive and never making me feel ashamed or less than a woman or not beautiful. He was always so complimentary and so drawn to me. And I think that biologically men are drawn to their pregnant wives, right? But I also all these mommy blogs and stuff, things online. I could see some horror stories of them, someone not being as attracted to the pregnant woman, or, the woman feeling not sexy, and that really like kind of wearing away at the relationship. So I was really lucky that Alex was like very effusive and very like, you're so beautiful, and you seem to really enjoy taking care of me and being still connected to me in this way. And sometimes like often not treating me like a pregnant lady, like still like we were still like physically intimate. We still like went to movies when we could and joked around and like played, and he teased me and stuff. And that kind of just made me feel like still like this, the sexy partner.
Good boy, Alex.
Yeah, he was really good. I can imagine how, because it's like a much different shape. And you don't know where, like, for people who are attached to their bodies. Your body changes in every single way possible. Your hair, your skin, my ribs. Oh, you look terrified right now.
That's just making me very unhappy.
Everything changes, and you're watching. The thing is that your body's doing the coolest thing. It's creating life, and I felt like a transformer in the positive way, where like my body was just like transforming into this other thing to create something new, and then now it's like we're going back to normal. But it's just an insane thing that women's bodies have to go through. So everything changes.
It's going back to normal.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I'm exactly the same as before.
I'm so worried about my boobs. So it's like my number one thought. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those don't seem to go back to normal.
Yeah, we're different. I'm different now.
Just to go back to a point you made earlier, I just wanted to add, like, I think a lot of people do think a baby will fix their relationship. And it's so weird because I always knew that was not the right thing to do. And yet I think I found myself in my last relationship thinking that a baby would regulate us, like get us on a better sleep schedule, cut down on alcohol and, recreational stuff, and give us a focus and a task that would, bring us into a healthier lifestyle. And it's just weird looking back, like thinking that, knowing that that's such a terrible idea.
Yeah, I mean, some of that is true. You definitely like are grounded at home. You do things for the health of the baby. It's no longer just about you. Everyone gets a little bit more like focus on what's like how to be good caregivers. So I think that does make me. That does make us like healthier in many ways. But no, it really, if you have cracks in a relationship, they will be exaggerated with a baby, which is not bad. Like, don't be scared when you're listening to this, because I think it does provide a really good opportunity to work on those things in a new way. Like you have a renewed sense of purpose, right? Like, we have a communication issue. We have this problem in our relationship. We need to get this figured out and find a way to like respectfully work together on this and for the sake of the baby. Whereas before it might be about your ego and being right and you against this other person. But this is like, how are we going to do this for this child? So
I think different. It highlights needing a partner who you really trust to put something else before them. There you go. And trusting a partner to be able to regulate themselves. And Okay, so labor and delivery. So tell us, you're walking, you're hippoing around, you're in pain, you are hating life, and then water breaks, or what happened?
I appreciated learning a lot about labor and delivery before, and the movies and everyone's recount of it as this like horrifying, painful time is not the full picture. And it's a really biased view in society that we keep perpetuating, but it doesn't need to be that way. First of all, there's a lot of parts of it that some of them are not that painful. You can have a delivery that's not painful. Okay. You can have one that is full of like beauty and fun, and I've even heard some things that it kind of blew my mind, that if you're like, there's creating a child is sexy and intimate and loving. And why can't you have those? It actually like enhances that in the moment, right? Like feeling close to your partner, feeling sexy. I mean, like people who have babies are like, what are you talking about? Like, you're just like contracting on the floor, you know? Like, but I mean, you have to remember that this is an act of love, and that's no exception here. And I felt like, just the dramatic image in movies where someone's just like screaming in pain and it's an emergency and everyone's scared. That is kind of like a modern way of looking at it, whereas there's many cultures who kind of see the beauty in it and approach it differently. Mm-hmm. So I that kind of blew my mind, because I was like, oh wait, I didn't even think about labor and delivery as not this like, it doesn't have to be the scary, awful process. Mm-hmm. I did feel like it was. I'd never done ayahuasca before, but I can when people describe it, I imagine it's like an ayahuasca ceremony where like you go inward. I didn't know this, but when you go into labor, you kind of go into a dissociative state. Every woman talks about this after I got pregnant, but you draw into yourself and go into like this weird trance-like state.
Okay.
Where the setting around me, I don't even know what happened. Like I wasn't really aware of what was happening outside of me. Mm-hmm. And you go inward and you get really in tune with your body in this like really weird way. Sometimes like I wasn't even there. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like I was in like a different place, and you kind of meet your limits. Like you meet like the heart. It takes all of your might and all of your willpower. It's not just pain. It's like you're using all of yourself to get this baby out. Mm-hmm. And that also means like taking moments of rest, taking moments to joke with your partner, sneaking a snack or some Gatorade, watching TV. Like everyone's story is, now that I've been talking to people about this, it's not just like scream, 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 baby out. Mm-hmm. You kind of go into this weird, some people cry, some people feel emotional. You like work through stuff. You work through your demons to get there. That's crazy.
I remember my mom describing it as like turning into a giant muscle and communing with every female mammal that had existed before.
Yeah, you have an intuition about your body that turns on, and you got to learn how to listen to it. Mm-hmm. Like a short story, like I had a vaginal delivery. That was something that was really important to me. But, mine didn't go as planned. I thought I was going to be yoga goddess and just like, I don't know, do like Warrior 2 and it'll slide right out of me into like a, blaze of glory. But he slipped into a weird position and he was super heavy. And I was just in like agony pain before, like in the first few minutes. I got the epidural. I know people have a lot of different opinions about that, but I really needed it. I needed that to get me through. And that's the thing. Nothing goes as planned. And that's like the start of motherhood. You plan things out. You're going to do it this way and that way. And nothing goes as planned. Every woman talks about that. I planned this way and it didn't go that way. I got the epidural. Didn't plan on it. And then I was cruising for like half a day. I was sleeping. I put on this like positive affirmations and guided meditation for 8 hours. And Alex and I just like lay back and just, just chilled out for a full 8 hours. It was great. It was some of the most fun time. Like it was just hanging out. And then when things started to, get up and going again, it was more intense. But yeah, it's just not what I expected. And like pushing, you're like literally, there's like people surrounding you. You've never done this before. And it's like the most physically arduous thing I've ever done. It feels like you're pooping into the air to people who are like counting down and holding their hands out. You're like doing the biggest poop of your life upwards to people. It was crazy. It was just a crazy, it was a crazy experience that, your body has this wisdom that I just tapped into. And it's just, sometimes I marveled at it. I was just like, what was that experience? That was crazy.
Okay, so it's interesting, you're talking about labor being both painful and, there's the agony part, but there's also a lot of beauty and it's an opportunity to connect. So do you have tips on how to make this process into one that's more beautiful than agonizing?
Yeah, I think the important part that I learned was to not just approach labor and delivery from a place of fear, right? We're always like, oh, it's so scary, it's going to be so painful. And remember what happens to the body when we're afraid, right? We clam up, we shut down, we want to run away. And that's kind of antithetical to like where we need to be when we give birth. So instead of focusing on the fear, remember that our bodies know how to do this. It's the most natural thing that human beings and all animals know how to do instinctually. No one teaches us this. So your body knows how to do this. You're going to be fine. Just focus on making this a safe place for you. So what that could mean is that you bring in some things, even to the hospital or whatever birthing center, things that make you feel safe, whether it's a blanket or a token or nice scents, people around you, like your partner, a doula, someone else to advocate for you and make you feel safe. Dim the lights, like make it comfortable for yourself. And that's where loved ones can really help with that. Once you kind of tap into like what you need in that moment, advocate for yourself. So don't be afraid to do that, right? Just because a doctor comes in and tells you what to do, you can kind of say like, I actually need a little bit more rest, or I need something to take the pain away, or I'm uncomfortable, I need to switch positions, right? So you could tell that to a loved one that you have there, like your support system, and they could help advocate for you in that moment. And that's been huge. That was like such an important way to make you feel empowered than just like afraid, passive, and vulnerable, which is a really hard place to approach labor and delivery. If you feel empowered, it'd be a really beautiful experience. And so communicate to your partner, be like, hey, listen, tell the doctor to like, bring in this one nurse. I really liked her. Or can I have an extra blanket? Can I have ice chips? Like, can you just like stroke my head? Or I asked Alex, like, can you give me a massage on my lower back? Just stuff like that where you just can speak up for yourself and your loved ones around you can help make that happen.
So baby comes out.
Mm-hmm.
What's that moment like?
This is another thing I wanted to make a point of, because I think everyone expects and gets really confused and sad if they don't have it. They expect the moment that they fall in love, the baby comes out and you fall in love. Oh, I'm a mother now.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Like they hold it, there's Instagram photos, smiling and stuff like that. And not everyone feels that way. Mm-hmm. And sometimes people don't feel bonded with their baby for like months after the baby's born. And that's completely normal. Mm-hmm. That's something that people talk about in like perinatal and postnatal clinics, where the mental health of parents, both fathers and mothers, they expect to fall in love, and then when they don't, they're like, oh my God, I'm the worst. Oh my God, something must be wrong. No, that's not really normal. It comes out this like gloopy alien, and they slap them on your chest, and I was in so much shock, and I was just like, what is this? What's happening to me? I didn't fall in love right away. And then they take him and right away start breastfeeding. Like, I thought at least I'd get a nap. Like, it's like sprinting an entire marathon. And then when you get to the end, you're like, yes. They're like, cool. So you see that mountain? You're going to walk up that forever. Like, forever. Can I have a snack? Like, no? Okay, this starts now? Great. I'm going to feed this thing every 2 hours for the next, forever? Cool. So it just starts right away. And you're like all of that it just took over. And I couldn't, fall in love right away. So
yeah, I had a friend who had an extremely painful and difficult delivery. And when they said, do you want to hold your baby? She's like, no. And then her husband was like, I don't either, because this baby just tortured my wife.
Yeah.
But then they fell in love, after that.
Yeah, if that happens, it doesn't mean you're a bad parent or something's wrong, or all these typical stories of extremely painful delivery, and then it comes out and you fall in love. That's not it. That's not how it works. It's this intense experience. But I saw a shift in me that's pretty dramatic, and it happened right away, and it just, I still have this. So I was kind of blown away. I didn't feel attached to him, but as soon as they took him away and started weighing him or doing something, he started crying, and immediately I started crying.
Aww.
So there becomes like there's this direct line of empathy or connection to this baby. At least I felt that. Not every woman feels that, but if I see him in pain, it feels like viscerally awful.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was going to happen, but it's still like if I see him in pain, or now if I see like TikTok videos of a kid crying, it actually like hurts. I start to tear up. Like it hurts.
Aww.
That's never. I mean, I'm a big fan of empathy. Yeah, we all know that. But like, I didn't know how direct it is, and now I don't judge women or parents who, won't do certain things because they see their kid in pain. And you're just like, wait, just take your kid to school and just leave him there. Why? Don't worry about him crying. I'm like, no, I can understand how that would feel physically devastating to see your child cry for you or something like that.
Yeah, that was interesting because I remember in one of the early days, you were in a really low place because he wouldn't stop crying and he was just really fussy that day. God.
Yeah.
And it was tempting to be like, well, put headphones on, or something like that. Yeah. Or like hand him off to Alex or your mom or something, but you were like, no, the problem is that I am in pain because he's in pain.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think those pieces of advice are bad. Actually, like I would actually say that as a tip for loved ones to come in and help. The social support, again, over and over, crucial for this period of time. And you do have to find strategies to help yourself with the pain you feel when you see your child in pain. Mm-hmm. If he's crying, he or she is crying, your new baby's crying, it feels so devastating to you. It's like, and I get shaky and I cry and you kind of go nuts really quickly. I didn't know that was the case. When your kid is inconsolable, I've gone mentally to like a place of insanity very quickly. And insanity means like you just feel desperation. You're just like anything to get this kid to stop feeling bad. Anything. And you feel helpless and you go into this burnt out place really quickly.
So what do you do when you're going nuts and your baby's crying and you're feeling all this pain? Like, how are you able to calm down?
That's really important to keep in mind. I mean, just first of all, expect it as a normal part of motherhood or parenthood. You're not doing something wrong. Everyone goes through it. And that's where support is really crucial, because when people are alone dealing with that, that's when they can, like they talk about shaken baby syndrome, where people who are just inexperienced, young and alone and afraid will kind of get so tense that they'll shake their baby or lose their temper or burn out. So that's when social support and like loved ones can really play a gigantic role for you. If you're alone, you don't have anyone around you, put the baby down somewhere safe and go take a deep breath. Go into the other room, take 10 deep breaths, relax your body. It's okay if the baby is crying. It's better if you kind of calm yourself down and regulate your emotions in that moment, and then go back with kind of like a fresh attitude. That could really help shift the whole energy. Instead of like just keep digging your heels in and just keep trying to like rock the baby or doing what you're doing. You could kind of, really burn yourself out there. So just go and take a deep breath. Take a little like 5-minute pause somewhere else to get a snack, and then come back to the baby. Now, if you have loved ones around you, you have a good partner, a family member, any other kind of help, talk to them, or kind of naturally go into this, but you could talk to them about what you can do in those moments of desperation. So that could mean, this is what it looks like for me and Alex. We could kind of read each other when the other person's kind of going nuts, right? Like they've had like an hour with the baby's crying. Alex will come in, he'll be like, let me take over. And he'll just hold the baby and, do what needs to be done, like help soothe him, and he will look at me and say, go take a walk. And I'll be like, no, let me try to help. Let me get this other thing. He's like, no, leave the house, go take a walk, come back in 10 minutes. And so and we've done that for each other. We'll just take over for the other one. It's not like the other one's doing it better, but it just lets the other person disengage, take a moment, take a breath, and then the baby can kind of get a fresh adult, right? Fresh energy, and that could shift everything for your own sanity and also for the family, the child. So those are like the major tips I would give, is like use your support system to like figure out what do you do in that moment. And the way it worked for us was someone takes over so the other person can kind of like regulate their own emotions and take a breath. And if you know, for new parents like me, when you're in those kind of desperation moments, you think, oh my God, this is forever. This is so scary. How can I deal with this? One thing that was helpful to remember was that babies change all the time. Like parenting changes dramatically in lots of different stages, especially in the early weeks. I didn't know that. I didn't realize how much you have to adapt. Things that are going well, routines, things that you think are, you know, secure and stable, suddenly they change the next day. That could be disorienting, but that could also be really relieving because, you know, from the ages of 2 weeks to 8 weeks, the babies cry uncontrollably sometimes. Like it's a big time of change, and they're very fussy at that age. And it's so helpful to remember that everything changes. So if things are really hard, the baby's crying a lot, you know, things aren't working, tomorrow's a new day and it could be completely different. So you could get that relief of, okay, this is really hard now, but remember, it's going to be okay very soon.
I'm just thinking about like single moms and just how impossible this feels, or this sounds.
Yeah.
It's unimaginable to me.
I think about that all the time. And I bet people listening, I bet there's some single parents out there, and I'm like, hats off to you guys.
Yeah.
I have so much respect for parents and stay-at-home parents and working, you know, just, it becomes like this club. It is this kind of, you are connected to this community. Once you get pregnant or have at least this is for me. I hope this is the case for you guys. But once you start to become a parent, other parents reach out to you, and suddenly there's this like renewed, this like connection to people of like, you know, we get it.
Yeah.
This is intense. And it's a whole new, it's such a universal experience, but so unique. People who are doing this alone, I just don't think people can. I think that if you're by yourself and feel like you should be doing this by yourself and are beating yourself up for not doing it better, I say like every parent out there should give themselves grace. That's the advice I got, and it didn't land until I was here. But like, you just got to be like, you know what? I'm just doing what gets by. I'm doing what works for me and my baby. It's not the perfect way. Mm-hmm. It doesn't look great, but like, it's okay. I'm just getting by. Yeah. And, you know, single moms, single dads, like, they gotta have some kind of family support, friend support. There's all sorts of online communities that I'll plug. That's a huge source of support. That, you know, the internet is, you know, for people who are alone. Mm-hmm. It could be a great place to like find someone else in your position and like talk and just have other people be like, I've been there. It's okay. You're doing great.
Yeah, it's interesting. I remember when my friends started having babies and people would they'd like judge how they were parenting. Mm-hmm. They would, you know, judge an Instagram story or something like that. And it's just so frustrating imagining like that new parent doing their best and figuring it out, and then some stranger like giving them unwarranted advice. Anyway, breastfeeding.
Yeah, that's another thing that I was like, why is that? Everyone talks about how emotional and painful and difficult breastfeeding is. And I was like, what are you all talking about? Don't you just stick this baby on a boob or decide not to and go on with your day? No, it's this primal first way you're connecting to your baby. It's like oxytocin is flowing for both you and the baby. it's the first way you're, like, giving to this thing in this very practical way. My body is the thing that, like, keeps this thing alive. That's, like, nourishing him. And if anything goes wrong in that process, the guilt, the stress, the obsession, I spent hours on, like, mommy blogs. By the way, don't go on those. You're going to if you're in this position, but don't, because there's a ton of misinformation out there. Like, I can't even tell you how many blogs I read that have, like, these really specific advice, and then I find out it's all wrong, and they just perpetuate, like, false information out there. So, but breastfeeding it's hard because it's this beautiful connection between you and the baby. They are, they're just being nourished by you. And there's just some women who struggle with it. They don't have enough breast milk. And the way that looks like is like you are trying to feed your baby. This is like your first role as a mom. Milk's not coming out. The baby is screaming and starving with his whole being. That line of empathy, you are distressed, and knowing that, like, breastfeeding is best when you're relaxed, so everything goes wrong. And then, you know what, in those moments, there's so many solutions that are great, like formula, pumping, whatever people need to do to get by.
Yeah.
But there's so much mommy guilt, right? Because they're like, oh, I envision motherhood to be like, I fully breastfeed this kid, and formula feels like the wrong thing to do. You know, I'm just getting an example, but it gets quickly into, like, you know, that there's a right way to do it, and I'm doing the wrong thing. And I'm telling you, whatever way keeps your baby alive is the right way for you guys. So
yeah, a lot of judgment about formula too. But if you don't have the breast milk, you don't have the breast milk. Yeah,
and kids are completely fine. And I know that intellectually. I went into this knowing intellectually, but still, if I pump and give them a bottle, or someone gives them the bottle, at first I thought that's great, as, you know, he's being breastfed. But I still feel guilty every time he eats a bottle.
Okay.
Even if I pump and he directly has the bottle, I feel like, oh my God, I've just sacrificed connecting and giving to my baby for my own independence, or to have, like, an hour free or something. There's just the guilt of, like, I'm taking care of myself, or I'm choosing to do something, and I've sacrificed the right way to be a mom. It's crazy, and I know that doesn't make any sense, but that's a new feeling that I have, that I've been living with now.
I mean, guilt was already your middle name, and now
exactly, yeah. And then mommy guilt is a whole new world. But I mean, for the loved ones piece, social support is important. One thing is, like, okay, now once you have a kid, you really open yourself up to a whole new world of interconnection with the friends and family around you. Suddenly you're very dependent. Suddenly this kid is going to have relationships with your parents, your siblings, you know, like your partner, right? It becomes like you go from a couple to, like, a web of family.
Yeah.
Instantaneously. That opens up beautiful things and also really hard things. One of the hard things is that people want to come in, and you talked about the judgment before. Parents or family members or friends often are crucial for the help, but sometimes they come in and be like, oh, this is how you do it. No, don't do formula. Do only breastfeeding. You can do it. Right? Like, people give these strong advice because everyone who's had a baby or a couple babies, they're going off of their own experience and what worked.
Yeah.
And they feel very confident in that. And especially when you deal with other women, like grandmothers, like I've had this experience with my mother, where, like, let's say I had a baby and I was living with my mother. Your mother was used to being the boss, right? She's used to being the CEO of a company, right? She's used to doing it her way, mothering me in her way, and suddenly, and I was the child. I was the thing that she was nurturing and teaching, stuff like that. And suddenly, I become the CEO. And the thing that family members and friends have to remember is everyone else then just becomes the support crew.
Yeah.
You're no longer the CEO teaching another CEO. You are now the underlings.
Uh-huh.
That's a really hard transition, right? The grandmother now has to be like, okay, my way is no longer the way in this household.
Yeah.
I'm here to hold the baby if it's needed, get her some water, help her with, fixing up the bassinet, right? Suddenly she's not the executor anymore.
Yeah. She's
She's not the boss. She's that support crew. And that can be really hard for mothers who are like stay-at-home mothers who become grandmothers and are very proud of that. That creates I've talked to many, many new moms, and this is like one of the central conflicts that come up. Yeah, and people didn't expect it, but like old dynamics come up. Suddenly it's like the mom and her baby having a baby, so she feels like she should be the boss of everyone.
Yeah.
And she's not. Suddenly your kid has to figure out how to raise their own kid. It's their journey. And so everyone has to accommodate.
And where does dad fit in all this?
That's a really interesting part. Dads are also crucial, but they're really undervalued in this process. And I really recommend people watch this wonderful stand-up or like one-man show called The New One by Mike Birbiglia. He's one of my favorite comedians. And he does a really beautiful job of describing like kind of like the male experience in this. Because they're a support crew. If they're doing well, right? If they're like great at it, they're the support crew. They're tying shoes. They're getting food. They're telling you you're sexy. They're like holding your legs up while you're like pooping this baby into the air, right? Like, ignoring that you're like, I don't want to say, never mind. But then they become like sidelined. The focus really becomes on the mother because the mother's like the central giver of life. And the fathers this is also their child, but they don't have the same connection. They're not breastfeeding, right? So they're like helping around, and sometimes they feel like they're on the outside looking in.
Yeah, I bet.
And that could be really hard. And Mike Birbiglia has a great line. He was describing like watching the birth of his daughter, and this is like monumental moment. He was like, I just watched my wife, this woman that I've loved for 10 years, my best friend, I've watched her become a mother. And I was there too. And he described how hard that could be for men, right? Like, men being used to getting the attention, getting the care from us, being the boss. Suddenly they're not the CEO of this situation. Yeah. They're also support crew, and it's also their kid.
What was it like to deal with Alex's, like, his emotions and feelings when it seems like yours are so paramount? Because I know he was homesick, for instance.
Yeah. I think Alex has a tendency to be a caregiver and people-pleasing and kind of stuff his own emotions down. So he was going through his own emotions of all the life transitions that this entails. For him is moving from his home. For other people is other things, giving up careers or changing careers or whatever. And he's the kind of person to like keep it inside so it doesn't stress me out. Yeah. But then that stressed me out because I know him very well. I could feel that he is upset and holding something back, and that was like just awful, right? So us communicating directly about his feelings and him just like being able to have space to say what he feels was really hard to get to, but we're getting better at that, right? That's something that we're working on. And that being okay, and there is a tendency for me to be like, oh my God, I can barely breathe right now. I'm so pregnant. I can't take in anyone else's stuff. But if you do that, then your support crew is not connected to the central, then you have that disconnect. Yeah. So I could see why having kids leads to a lot of divorce, separation, or whatever, because everyone's going through something intense, and if you don't come together on it, you could really drift away from each other.
Yeah. How did you two manage to keep close?
That's where the getting help was key. I'm lucky to have help. And my mom's here, and I'll have other kind of help. And so we have to intentionally have someone just take the baby for the night, like put him down, and they take the baby, and he and I can have our own private time. So like date nights, essential.
Yeah.
Really having intentional quality time. When you're alone as a couple, you have so much quality time together that you take for granted, like watching TV, and you like the person's just there, right? And you have like alone time, just you take that for granted. Now that it's like the three of us all the time, we have to intentionally do what we did last night, like go out with our friends for a game night and just not be parents. I know that's a luxury, and not everyone can do that, but even if you could steal away an hour, a coffee date, something where it's just you two as adults and not like mommy and daddy, you bring the humanity back to it, right? He's not the support crew and I'm the CEO who's like trying to squeeze my breast milk into things. We're just like Kibby and Alex, like joking around, you know?
Yeah, seeing you last night was kind of, it made me less nervous about Parenthood, because I'm like, oh, she's still having fun. She's like, you just seemed like the same person. But speaking of identity shifts.
Yeah, you gotta intentionally. I made that decision to intentionally do that. I think identity shifts are important. I didn't want to lose myself in this parenthood, and I think that I was very scared to have a baby, and I bet a lot of people are. They're like, should I be a mom or not? Should I have a child or not? And I think if you think of it like, I just lose myself in this, I'm going to be a parent and not be my former self.
Yeah.
Then of course it's going to be terrifying, unless you hate your former self and you're ready for a big change, right? But like, I really like my work. I like my friends. I like going out with people like you and doing something fun, you know, and I like traveling. We like going to movies. I like, you know, I like being me. And if I really entered this thinking I'm just going to lose all of me, I wouldn't have a kid. And so it is harder, but I just have to intentionally do what we do all the time and just like really figure out what makes me me, what makes me feel like me.
Yeah. And
then actually plan those activities. Like what makes me feel like me is going out with my friends like you guys and just have a night playing games or talking or doing something silly, right? Telling stories. I intentionally did that. And it's not easy. Like the moment that you leave your kid with like, you know, someone else, babysitter, parent, friend, loved one, and pull yourself away, there is this like, you feel the guilt, you feel the anxieties of separation, you feel all these things, and you just got to be like, no, it's important for me to not lose myself and not give in to those initial feelings of distress when you separate from the baby.
So it sounds like you're doing a pretty good job at maintaining that former identity. Is it more difficult than you're letting? Are there difficulties, and are there parts of this new identity that you really love?
Yeah, I think that I was surprised how much I like motherhood. What's cool about it's like I didn't realize how intellectually stimulating it is. You're watching this thing develop every day.
Yeah,
and he goes from being a writhing potato to someone who looks me in the eyes and then like giggles or like does something like sticks out his tongue at me and then laughs. You know, like you watch this thing become a human. That's the coolest thing I've ever experienced. And then you have this bond, this thing that you love. It adds a lot to your life. Yeah. So it's a lot of loss. You know, like I can't just go out every night and not think about it, right? I can't just go off on a trip and not think about like a million things to pack and how to bring him. But you gain this like watching human life, right? Being connected to this really human experience. What is hard is like I honestly don't have a solution to this yet, but I'm going to come back to work, and I'm used to really doing work in a very particular way, which for me is like obsessive. It's intense. I do like 15-hour days nonstop. I make myself sick. I make it all my identity. I drive myself with this like, I need to make something of myself kind of drive. And now I don't have that.
Yeah,
I don't
have
this. I mean, it's healthy. I mean, like I wasn't, you know, but it's going to be hard to, and I know that a lot of women go through this, or men too, like you're going to go back into work and all of your priorities have shifted.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, I used to think that being the best or being, like, good at work or my professional career was going to make me and bring me value in life. And now I'm just, I don't know even how to articulate it. It's just softened.
Mm-hmm.
And now I don't know how to operate without that.
Yeah, are you experiencing any loss of interest in career?
I still think all the things I do are interesting. I still love research. I still love psychology. I still love doing this. I still love, but I think it's a little bit like you want to trim the fat. I'm not going to do grunt work for hours and hours on end that doesn't like either pay a lot or bring me something. Yeah. I used to do that. I used to do all sorts of stuff just to like build up my resume. And now I'm just like, no, I'm going to do things that are interesting. I'm going to do things that support my family, that feel meaningful. Then I'm going to spend the rest of my time with my kid or like leave enough room for myself to be a mom. So I feel like I'm adding an identity. Not taking things away necessarily, but I'm adding an identity, and how do I combine that with my old version of myself? And I don't have an answer to that, but I do know that a lot of people go through this kind of shift.
Okay. So why don't we give some objective tips? For either being a mom or helping a mom. Yeah,
I'll say that I'll kind of harp on that, how, important social support is. And the research shows that one of the major things that helps people avoid postpartum depression and anxiety is objective support and emotional support from their partner. If you have a friend or a loved one who just had a baby, remember that don't come in with your advice. Don't go in saying, this is how you do it. Don't come in with your instructions. Come in asking, is there any way I could help? And then if the new mom or dad wants advice, like they're like, I don't know how to get my kid to sleep. What did you guys do? Then you could kind of give some things that you did just to give ideas. Yeah. So give ideas, not instructions, based on your own experience. And then objective support literally means like get the person meals. Take the baby, like just literally take the baby so that person can go to the bathroom. Like just hold it. Take them so that the couple can go and have dinner by themselves, right? Get, help clean up their house if they're willing, right? Yeah. Like help with the adulting that goes by the wayside, right? Like just get them supplies, ask them how you could be helpful. So come in and remember that you're the support crew, and then be open to whatever they need. And then just reassure them they're doing well. The thing that's the most harmful is to suggest that they're not doing things right. Yeah. A lot of people come in being like, I'm going to help them by telling them that they're wrong for using formula, and I give them tips for doing more breastfeeding. Yeah. No, don't do that. Don't undermine how people decide to parent. Yeah. Support them, encourage them, be their cheerleader, and remember that the way they want to parent for their own child is such an individual choice that you don't have a place to tell them what's right or wrong, but you're just going to be there for them and help them in their decision making.
I mean, would you say the same, though, if you see something that seems really, really bad parenting? Like, being physically rough with the kid?
That's tough. That's really tough. But it's going to be, really hard to come in and say you're being rough for your child. You're like, because it's not going to go over well. Yeah. It's not. If you come in and criticize them, they're just going to feel more defensive. And a lot of people are rough with their children because they're desperate, they're tired, they don't have help, right? And so, or they don't know better, and in that case, they can ask you, right? But don't come in hot. Don't come in and think that you know better for their child. Offer that support, and then see if they're open to some suggestions. Okay. But you're right. That's a tricky line to cross. What if you see something bad happening? Yeah.
Resources. We talked earlier. Oh, and first of all, I just want to say that I'm happy to hold your baby so that you can go to the bathroom at any time.
Thank you.
It was the most wonderful experience holding Jackson. So We talked earlier about support groups, internet support groups.
The one I liked, I mean, be careful, like, don't take everything online, don't take every forum or blog seriously. If something feels harmful, if something feels like distressing, just don't read them. But I really like the whattoexpect.com website. I think it's pretty well managed, and they have a community where you could actually become, like, you could join the group of other parents who have had babies around the same time as you. So it's kind of nice to see posts and discussions from parents who will have the same age baby, because every age is so unique. Yeah. There's so many changes all at once that it's nice for people to be in your same stage. And also what I heard is like you could look on Facebook for local mommy groups or daddy groups. And that's huge, because then you can, I don't know exactly how to do it. Just look on Facebook, and I for example, I have Upper West Side Moms as the one I joined. And there's just like simple things that people can help, like anyone have a babysitter that's available, anyone need a stroller, anyone want to take a walk together and drink some wine. So if you don't have your natural community of like friends and family around, there are online resources that you can reach out and find that, and that's very, very huge.
One that my friend really enjoyed and found crucial was called PEPS.org. So it's Program for Early Parent Support. And that is basically an organization where it connects people living in the same area, and they can do virtual or in-person meetups. All right. Well, if you would like to show us some support, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe. Very, very helpful for us, and we will see you all next week. By accessing this podcast, I acknowledge that the hosts of this podcast make no warranty, guarantee, or representation as to the accuracy or sufficiency of the information featured in this podcast. The information, opinions, and recommendations presented in this podcast are for general information only, and any reliance on the information provided in this podcast is done at your own risk. This podcast and any and all content or services available on or through this podcast are provided for general, non-commercial informational purposes only and do not constitute the practice of medical or any other professional judgment, advice, diagnosis, or treatment, and should not be considered or used as a substitute for the independent professional judgment, advice, diagnosis, or treatment of a duly licensed and qualified healthcare provider. In case of a medical emergency, you should immediately call 911. The hosts do not endorse, approve, recommend, or certify any information, product, process, service, or organization presented or mentioned in this podcast, and information from this podcast should not be referenced in any way to imply such approval.